Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, even satire needs a representative angle, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're over at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, pretty much everywhere. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we would absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on the TikTok, and we're on Letterboxd for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because you know what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please do us the kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we got a fun one. It is a brand new show that debuted just a couple of weeks back over on APTN, and it is called The Feather News, and it's a comedy show that parodies, the media and government, but from an Indigenous perspective. And I mean, it's gives us a whole slew of Indigenous comedians and writers, and it's completely sort of born from Indigenous viewpoints and Indigenous voices, and it's a lot of fun as they tackle hot topics from claims of false Indigenous identity to protests to systematic racism to social media activism and everything else in between. It's a bit of a hoot, I will say that. But we had the unique pleasure of sitting down with the one and only Ryan Moccasin, who is the executive producer on the show. And I mean, if you don't know who he is, he's an author, he's a satirist. But originally, he's a comedian from Saskatoon, and that's kind of where he all started, and that's kind of where this all started. And we talked to him about the origins of getting this off the ground, and so very much more. But like I said, go check out The Feather News over on APTN whenever you get a chance. But first, enjoy our talk with Ryan, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. All right, well, obviously, first off, man, just thank you so much for the time today. Man, congrats on the show, man. It's funny as all hell.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, good to be here. We just did a interview with CTV this morning, and yeah, it's good to finally talk about it after working on it for a year and a half. So
now, I mean, walk me through sort of the origin of it all. What sparked the idea to kick this off?
Yeah, so I started it as a comedy blog in 2018. I noticed that there wasn't really any people exploring Indigenous satire in terms of news out there. There was one publication called, and there still is, it's called Walking Eagle News. So he's based in Winnipeg, and he's kind of like emulates The Onion in the States. And so that's what I wanted to do. So it started in 2018 just as a simple website at thefeather.ca. And then a few months later, I met up with some stand-up comedians here in Saskatoon. That's our background. I'm a stand-up comedian, and the other two guys are Danny Knight and Shawn Cuthand. And we just generated ideas on how we could incorporate videos into the website, because before it was just fake news articles. And I really wanted to kind of poke fun at how Indigenous people were represented in the media. So we went out, we made these like fake news updates and like fake interviews. And we just started posting them to YouTube and started generating some interest. Pretty soon we got some grants, like from arts organizations, to start funding what we were doing. So we started gaining traction. And of course, the pandemic hit. That kind of slowed productions down for everybody except us, because we were so small. We had a small bubble. We could continue working on our comedy. And we just kind of honed the tone and the tone of the show, I guess, and the aim where we wanted to go, till eventually in 2021, we saw a pitch competition at Imaginative, which is a film festival in Toronto, and in partnership with APTN. So I got Danny Knight and Shawn Cuthand, the two hosts, to go out there and pitch this show for us as a TV show. We kind of built it into a 15-minute format is what the show is at right now. And we kind of envisioned it as what could this look like as maybe hopefully as a half-hour TV show one day. So we're slowly building up to that. This is not the Feather News' final form. It's always changing, and we always like want it to get better. So you can see like how it is right now. It's a 15-minute streaming show, how it came to be 5 years later on 2018 when we just started as a simple comedy blog idea. So that's the gist of where we're at right now and how
Very
it came
cool,
to be.
man. And I mean, it's one of those things because, you know, satire is always been such a great tool on really, you know, getting ideas across and sort of talking about issues. But it always seems within the Indigenous community, like comedy has never been a tool. Like, is there a reason behind that? Or like, why do you think you guys are really starting to push forward on that front? Because I mean, to me, issues always hit home with me so much more when it's presented in a sort of like not just satirical, but it allows for a certain degree of honesty in the satire as well.
It does. Yeah. There's a disarming element to comedy, you know, when you present issues to your audience. And I find that what can't be digested in truth is better served through satire. I find, you know, it's a way to connect with people and, like I said, disarm them, where you can talk about serious issues in a comedic manner and also a respectful manner as well. One thing we want to do with this season of shows is, so in the past, when we do our YouTube shorts, we would do our own research, and more often than not, we would be pretty bad at that research, and we would get corrected a lot. Well, just so people in the comment section would tell us like, well, this is actually fake, or this actually, that fact you guys presented isn't true. Like, okay, we had to retract what we did. So with this season, how we approached it is we hired some actual research producers, people with academic backgrounds, to research the subject matters, because every episode has an underlying theme to it, like the RCMP or economy on reserves. And we had a research team go out and ask these research questions, and we dove into those, what they presented to us before we started hitting the writing room. So our comedy is a bit more informed than it used to be. And so to kind of avoid any mistakes or any misinformation being out there. As weird as it sounds, we're a fake news show, but we're like worried about misinformation, right? We don't want to present ourselves as adding to the problem. So when it comes to Indigenous comedy and presenting it in satire, especially in our own communities, comedy is a big thing. We have like that own specific kind of comedy, which kind of disarms people. And, you know, it's a way of connecting with people in a way you haven't done before. But when you add satire and you add elements of truth into that, you know, it kind of really opens up room to, you know, have those deeper conversations you wouldn't otherwise in a normal setting, like real news. So yeah, that's how we want to explore this. And we hope that people can, you know, see it that way and have a few laughs and maybe walk away with the nuggets of truth. So.
Now, I mean, you just said something that really sparked my interest, sort of like your own type of comedy. Like, is there a style of comedy that is maybe more specifically representative for the Indigenous communities?
I would say that, like, I didn't, like myself, I didn't grow up on a reserve. Like, I was more like of an urban upbringing. So I would say more like Danny Knight and Shawn Cuthand, they would have closer ties to their home community. And like they have a specific kind of comedy, like when you add it to the Feather News, you know, maybe making fun of aunties or just making fun of like family and stuff like that, you know? Yeah. So it's we try to make like the show kind of self-aware in that respect. Like, sure, we make fun of the government, but there's also room to make fun of ourselves as well, make fun of our own leadership, our systems, and kind of poke fun at the truth in that regard. So I guess the short answer is I don't really know what kind of humor we have. Danny and Shawn would have to speak to that. And but yeah, every community seems to have like their own connections to the comedy that in that way.
Well, I mean, it's fair to say it's probably true for every community. Like, it's those little cultural idiosyncrasies that you can sort of lean on a little bit harder, you know, in a certain way than maybe in a different culture you wouldn't as much. It makes for an interesting dynamic. And I mean, I'm kind of curious in developing something like this, how do you find the line to make sure that it's not just speaking to the community, but it's speaking to an audience. Like it's, you want it to be representative, and you want people in the Indigenous community to enjoy it and have a laugh with it. But obviously, you want like white guys like me to have a laugh at it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, when we get into the writer's room, like I said, we research this stuff heavily. And then when we sit down, we come up with an outline, first draft, second draft. And in between those ones, so there's 4 writers, myself, Shawn, Danny, and Musquilla Raw. He's our editor. And also he contributes a lot to the writing process. So us 4, when we sit down, I always ask the guys, like, how do we make this kind of precious to our home communities, but also universal? So we appeal to Canadians, because really what the show wants to do is it wants to share the Indigenous experience in Canada, and we do that through truth. I mean, do that not through truth, but we do that through comedy and satire. So how do we make this more universal? So in the first kind of few drafts that we wrote up, we had some jokes that were kind of local here to Saskatoon or were local to our home communities. And in the second or third drafts, I kind of challenged the writing team to, how can you make this more universal so someone on the East Coast would understand a home reference, right? How do we make it more universal? So you kind of have to have that balance where the language has to be changed a bit so you can accommodate everybody's in Canada, right, to understand what you're talking about. Because I don't know, where are you at right now?
I'm in Toronto.
You're in Toronto. Okay. So you probably wouldn't understand a joke about one of our casinos here, right? So I kind of like challenge the writing team. How do we make someone, Dave in Toronto, would understand when we're making a casino joke here, right? So you kind of have to approach it into like a national viewpoint, like how people would understand, and also even international, right? We would love to hit the international markets one day. How would Indigenous people in New Zealand or Norway understand our content? So that's a challenge. It's an ongoing challenge, right? When it comes to the writing process, how do you make it more universally appealing, I guess? So it's something that we do in the writer's room. It's a balancing act. It's a delicate dance we do, but it's this is actually like one of the first seasons where we have a formal writing room. So and as we grow bigger, we want to have more writers into the writer's room, maybe even hire a writer from out in Toronto, right? An Indigenous person, right? So they have that perspective out there, because everything kind of is local here in Saskatoon. So I guess the challenge is, expand the writer's room, people from a different nation out on East Coast or West Coast here. So that's how, so it's an ongoing process.
No, I mean, in all walks of life, I mean, no matter where you're from, no matter who you are, it always has felt to me that comedy is kind of the great unifier when it comes down to sort of the human race. Like, everyone enjoys having a good laugh, either at themselves or at issues around us. From your perspective, what is it about comedy and even satire that is such a big, I guess, unifier? Like, everyone, because I mean, no matter where you are, no matter who you're from, there's always something of being able to appreciate, making fun of yourself or making fun of sort of the systems that are around you. That's something that we can all relate to.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, as I said, our background as stand-up comedians, we're used to that performance art of it all, right? Getting in front of an audience, seeing if a joke lands, seeing if it doesn't land. But it all starts, like, for me personally, it starts like I identify as a writer first. And when it comes to comedy, they always say that there's this equation, comedy is tragedy plus time, and that equals comedy, right? So in Indigenous country, there's not a shortage of tragedies, right? We can all agree that historically there's been a lot of atrocities, and you add the element of time to that, 50 years, 100 years later on, maybe we can look back and we can, not make light of it all, but, maybe have a connected laugh about it all if you do it in a respectful manner. And so that kind of, I guess that goes back to your question earlier about how is our comedy different? We do find a lot of reasons to laugh about that, because there's many reasons to look back on as tragedies, right?
Yeah.
And kind of heal ourselves in a way by making our community laugh and making ourselves laugh as a result. So I maybe just answered an earlier question, but so when it comes to yeah, why is it like a unifying thing? Why is it such a unifying force? I find with satire as well, we live in an age that, people are saying that it's, highly fractured, and people are becoming more polarized. People are in their corners of the world, right? Their point of view is becoming more narrow as the internet and media expands. With satire, I think it kind of connects us all because, especially when you make fun of the government or people of those in power, and even the systems that are around us, I think that kind of unifies everybody because everybody seems to be like fed up with, high cost of living, or, they're, like they're always afraid of the other and stuff like that. But if you make fun of the systems and the governments around it, I think that kind of unifies people in that regard, right? Because there's nothing more thoroughly democratic than seeing the high and mighty lampooned and spoofed. It's just funny, right? And so just to connect people in that way, right? We really live in like I don't want to say like very like tough, like seems like end of apocalyptic times we are, especially during the pandemic. So people reach for comedy to kind of like as a lifeline, and also for healing, and just like for medicine, and so that's what really want to present with the show, and hope people get a laugh and enjoy it all at the end of the day. So
Well, Ryan, man, I think you've done that and then some, because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, regardless of what community we're in, what culture we're in, we all want to be treated and recognized as human beings. And I mean, that shared joy of being able to have a laugh together is one of those unique things that, we will always have in common, across the human race. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think you guys have done a great job with this show. And I mean, I can't wait to see it expand, because again, it's bringing up real things, but it's presenting them in a very sort of light and humorous manner, which is, at least from my perspective, helping these things stick in my brain a lot more.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's it's a really cool thing seeing it all come together a year and a half later, and yeah, we hope people feel the same way. You always get a bit nervous, because we make this stuff kind of
Well, you're in a
private.
bubble, you're in a
Yeah, in a
vacuum. No, of
bubble.
course, yeah.
It makes us laugh. We enjoy it, so we hope people feel the same. But I'm glad you enjoy it there, Dave. And yeah, watch out. It's coming out in a few days, and yeah, we were actually in Toronto. Like we premiered an episode at Imaginative last October, and we actually got to see people's first reactions in the theater at TIFF at the Bell Lightbox there, and it was really surreal seeing people laugh at it. So it was kind of like a test audience for it all. It was amazing to see. So
Love it. But man, keep up the good work, and thank you so much for the time today, man.
appreciate it, Dave. Yeah, anytime.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.